Sam Seder on the Majority Report. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the program Ryan Grim, the founder and co-founder of the site Drop Site, which you can find on Substack. We'll put a link to that, and also the co-host of Counterpoints on the Breaking Point.
For this exact reason, we are actually like phasing out the name Counterpoints because it's just so confusing. Counterpoints on the Breaking Points channel, so it's just all going to be Breaking Points now. Oh. So we'll just have 4 co-hosts of Breaking Points, but like 2 a day.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
we will win.
We just broke some news, did we?
You did. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Emma Vigeland on her honeymoon. It's already been 4 days. I don't know what she's doing, but there's a couple stories I want to talk about. But let's obviously start with the big one. You literally wrote the book about winning a campaign when they have money, but we have people. Mm-hmm. The name of your book, I'm not sure if you recall, the first one was They Have Money, We Have People.
Yeah, there you go. And underpinning that is that you also do need a little bit of money, not just people. And New York City's matching funds, I don't know if it necessarily made this possible because, as Mamdani was turning money away, but without the match getting him into the kind of credibility, viability range, maybe he doesn't get that amount of small dollars because people don't want to just give to anybody who is going to get 3%.
Absolutely. And you can't manage 50,000 volunteers unless you have some paid staff.
Exactly. And you can't organize that number of volunteers without some paid staff and some people. They might show up once and then it's a disastrous experience. Nobody's got a clipboard for you. They don't tell you what to do. It's hot out, and you're like, "Well, I tried." Yeah. But so to make it a fulfilling and enriching and useful experience for these volunteers, you have to have it well structured and organized to get them to not just come back, but then to recruit their friends. So yeah, you do need money too. And which he had.
All right, so let's, track this for us. I know that you interviewed Mamdani like 7 months, it's maybe around January, I think.
We just looked. It was November the first time.
November. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Give me your sense of how this tracked over the campaign. I mean, we interviewed him in January, and I noticed about a month or two ago that the title was still is he going to beat Adams? And, we're like, oh, we should change that. Now, of course, it's back in play because Adams had dropped out. But what happened here? I mean, what do you attribute this to?
That's interesting. He had to get past the threshold of support, which means he had to start raising enough money that he'd start getting his name out there, and and he did that very early, and thanks to these matching funds, up to $250, it's matched 6 times or something. So he had, by early January, a significant amount of money to start spending on social media ads and to put together a team that could then produce these really well done social videos that were getting out there. And he hit the podcast circuit, pretty hard. So there, you can reach kind of a threshold amount of people who are very plugged, because they're very plugged into politics. In fact, outside of the campaign headquarters on Tuesday night, I met a woman who was going to an exercise class. She was wearing a Zoran shirt, and she said, "Hey, I love Breaking Points and I love the Majority Report."
She said both?
Yes, she watched the Majority Report.
In that order?
Okay. Well, Breaking Points is in the morning. Majority Report's in the afternoon.
Makes sense. Okay, that tracks.
Yeah.
That tracks.
Yes. And she said, she was constantly wanted to watch these programs to get updates on Zoran, and but she'd been watching it for a long time. So that's the kind of person that's going to then volunteer for the campaign. So you can So because of this independent media pipeline, you can actually reach them. And then at some point, I think the public woke up to the fact that Andrew Cuomo was seriously trying to have another act as mayor of New York City, so then needed to start paying attention to this election and to see who the viable opponents were. And by the time people were paying attention, Mamdani was viable and had a message that resonated with people, which is that the city's unaffordable. Like you have to make several $1 million a year. You tell me in New York City for that not to resonate with you.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I mean the city is incredibly expensive. And it does resonate across a very wide spectrum of what, people would be surprised, I think, if you live in other, in smaller cities, just like how wide that resonates. I mean, I had people the day after the election approach me about childcare, and they're like, we're spending, $40,000 a year on childcare.
Right.
And now look, there's obviously cheaper childcare, but I don't know that you could get it cheaper than like 15,000. I mean, I was in a co-op 12 years ago for nursery school, and that was 12 years ago. It was around that amount of money, but you could say, save money by a co-op, but this and that, but it helps just the idea of being seen in that way by a candidate, I think. But I just want to, what's fascinating to me is that it feels like the Cuomo campaign and the entire Democratic establishment was so upset the day after, whether that was like in the CNBC crew. I mean, obviously, let's put the right to aside for a moment. It is amazing to me because we have seen, starting with the Howard Dean campaign, which was in 2004, that there's a shift in the dynamic of how campaigns are run. And the reason why the primary is in June in New York State is because it was a incumbent or a big name protection racket.
Right.
They have the machine. Cuomo knew from day one he was going to get his 350,000 votes that are going to come from the machine that has been built.
Right.
And they just assume nobody can get a higher number than that. So if we put it in the summer, people won't come out. They don't realize that this alternative mechanism to at least get a jump start. I mean, look, Mamdani is a great candidate, and not everybody could do that. But they don't realize there's a mechanism, there's a counter machine that exists now that didn't exist, let's say, 30 years ago.
Yeah, AOC found that exact kind of crack because it was right around the exact same time that her primary was scheduled against Joe Crowley. 40,000 people voted in that primary. This is a district that represents roughly 700,000 people. So, Zoran had 50,000 volunteers. She needed like 16,000 votes total to knock off one of the most powerful Democrats in the entire country. It's sort of, it's like a Death Star situation where somebody put a little flaw in the blueprint that this will work unless you can excite people and get them out to the polls. And Democrats could not imagine a world in which voters could get excited to go to the polls and vote for somebody other than the party machine hack that was being put up. And that lack of imagination has now cost them across the board. DSA's elected a ton of people to the Assembly, the Senate. After 2018, Mamdani was elected in this 2020 wave. I actually met. Do you remember Adnan Gabor-Gorges, who was the second candidate running against Elliot Engel?
Yes. I interviewed him as well at that time, and he dropped out in support of
Jamal Bowman.
Yeah.
And that was actually a crucial moment because he dropped out and endorsed Bowman, and then it was just a day or two later that Elliot Engel went to this Black Lives Matter rally.
I'm only here because I'm being contested. Yeah.
and he was only there, I think, because he now had only one opponent and thought he might lose. But anyway, Gabriel was at Zoran's party. He organized the East African voters for Mamdani, and he told me that when he was running in that 2020 race in September 2019, he went to the AOC Bernie rally, which is right nearby in Astoria. Just canvassing, trying to raise money, get signatures, meet voters, and he said he saw this kid kind of hustling outside of the Bernie Sanders AOC rally, and the kid had some magnetism to him, so he went over and watched him for a while and watched him speak to people, and he's blown away. He's the only candidate I gave money to. He came there to get signatures, shake hands, raise money. He ended up giving this 26-year-old Zoran Mamdani $5 for his campaign, and stayed in touch with him after that. And he, Mamdani that year knocked off a longtime assembly member, and Mamdani and the other DSA members, formed this bloc in Albany, which caused real problems for Cuomo. And I argued helped kind of push him out. He may have been able to withstand his different scandals if not for this genuinely oppositional bloc that was against him in Albany. And so this has been building for a long time, and the city Democrats never moved the primary. You could move them together, have everything in September, or you could have everything having it in September, if you notice, really screwed them with George Santos, because they had all of these guys elected in September, and then they had no time to be oh, by the way, this one's a con artist.
Yeah, I mean, that's it's a dilemma. And I should also say that this primary garnered, as far as I can tell, I don't know the exact numbers, but close to 20 to 25% more voters than the last mayoral primary.
Yeah, it was well over 1 million. So,
and the other dynamic, I think, is that progressives were smarter about how you win. I mean, one of the stories was AOC. They, people were waiting on her endorsement. She ended up endorsing very, in timing wise, almost the same time she had in the prior race. And from my perspective, I don't know if this is what their thinking was. It made a lot of sense because people don't know that this campaign is happening. You want to do it close so that it's like an action item, right? You don't want hey, make sure you buy my book in 6 months when it comes out. No, you want people to be able to act. But one of the stories I read was that she and her team wanted to see a coalition, some type of cohesive strategy by all the progressives as to how you're going to beat Cuomo. And I don't know. Do you know much about that story?
Yeah. Yes. And also, that is the case. And Brendan Mencia, who's a UAW official who organized the UAW's endorsement of both Mamdani and Lander, they came in very early, and they pushed those two very hard. They said, look, you guys need to be together. This needs to be, you need to cross endorse. You're not going to be able to beat Cuomo alone. And AOC felt the same way. And I there's who knows counterfactuals, etc. But I think it's true. I think Brad Lander's support for Mamdani was essential to getting him to just fortifying him through some of the tough moments. But then also, Mamdani's team was telling me that their early polling had them winning something like 60-40 of Lander's voters. After the endorsement, that moved up considerably to closer to 80-20 or something, which is really unusual, which shows because usually candidates can't actually move their own voters to somebody else. The voters yeah, I like you, but if you're not going to win, I'm going to choose for myself. It's rare, actually. And AOC can do it, Bernie can do it, a few people can do it because they become a heuristic in people's minds. Okay, yes. Bernie supports this person, then I don't need to look into them. He's looked into it. It's fine. But there's not a lot of people that can do that. But Lander, for his voters in New York, was able to do that, and so that was really. He
created a permission structure, I think, for a lot of Jewish support to say okay, I trust
broad Elizabeth Warren level support,
yes,
for college graduates.
Speaking of that, the Colbert or Late Show thing. Do you know anything about the sort of like what went into that interview? Because I was very surprised to see Stephen Colbert ask that question, particularly in the context in which he did it. It was sort of like almost the first question. But it also struck me like that is a great question to ask. That it's not inconceivable that that was put on the agenda by the candidates, because you are reaching exactly the demographic you want, that Cuomo has been reaching with relentless ads. If you want a chance to address that ad, that would have been the time and place to do it, and sitting next to Brad Lander would have been the way to do it.
I don't know enough to say whether or not that was orchestrated or organized. I have heard that that it was rocky, like that there's more even to the story, that behind the scenes there was even some kind of aggression from around that whole situation.
Oh, wow.
Which I'm still trying to report out. So I don't have all the details yet. So I think that but I think there could be multiple things happening at the same time. I think there could be some kind of Colbert factions or whatever, inside his staff or something, that really wanted like an ambush type of, like, we're going to nail this guy situation. But then you're right that actually it plays to, Lander and Mamdani's advantage. Because not only does it look weird, because it's like, aren't these guys running for mayor? Like, what is going on here? And then really you're going to be attacking this guy when the two of them agree for the most part about this issue, and he supports him and vice versa. Like, so it does really take the teeth out of it.
I think it was very helpful for Mamdani. I think it was very helpful.
If there were some Colbert staffers who thought that they were going to, hurt Mamdani with that, it shows that that's why they're in comedy, and not in politics.
I mean, but Colbert, in my experience, and I haven't, I haven't had a conversation with him in over, probably 10 years. I was surprised by that question. Just knowing, what his politics were, at least. I was rather surprised. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.